Hello and welcome to the Paid Search Podcast. My name's Chris, and we're going to talk about Google Ads. I have a packed show today, a lot of different topics. As you see in the title of the podcast, I'm talking about wasting money on search partners, a very important cautionary tale for many of you out there that I want to share. Beyond that, I also have some questions. I want to update you guys on some very important updates from Google about experiments. I'm going to tell you some updates that have been happening in the user interface of Google Ads. I'm going to share the cautionary tale about Google partners, Google search partners. I have a question from Jim in Massachusetts about what I talked about last week. I'm going to talk about bidding, manual bids, some complications there about how to interpret this information. So I'm going to dive a bit more into that. And last, this is something I rarely do, so if you're interested in this, be sure and stick around. I have a question from Anthony, who is wanting to know, is PPC a realistic field to actually get a career in? If I haven't done this before, should I get certifications? Is this something that I should pursue or not, particularly without any experience? So I'm going to answer that question and all of this coming up in the show right after I tell you about optio.com/PSP. That is the single one sponsor of this show. It is a tool specifically for you guys to get more done in Google Ads, right? I'm not talking about buying all natural beef, right? The sponsor of this show is specifically for you. So I have many sponsors that want to be on this show, and I can gladly say that this is the one sponsor I've been very happy to tell you about. I don't have to try and convince you to buy some silly cream to put on your face, right? I'm actually telling you about a software that you really would be interested in trying. And the reason is it can help you optimize your campaigns. You'll hear people that send in questions to this show all the time rave about, oh my goodness. And by the way, thanks for introducing me to Optio. It's been great. So if you haven't tried it, you can do so for 2 months free. Everyone else out there gets 1 month for free. If you go to optio.com/PSP, the link is wherever you are watching or listening. It's opteo.com/PSP. You can try it for 2 months. Use the little chat box down there. Tell them, hey, Chris told me that you'd give me a special deal. They'll do that. And also tell them, hey, there's a special Ngram tool. That's the letter N, GRAM tool. I talked about that in last week's show. Be sure and ask about that too. They offer so many things. It's a growing tool. You're going to love it. optio.com/PSP. All right, so usually I have a metric of the week. I'm going to skip that because you'll see I'm actually going to be talking about that a little bit later in one of the questions. So in place of my metric of the week topic, I'm going to tell you some news about Google. So this is my news section. So news from Google, 2 things I want to highlight for you. And just this week, I actually got questions from listeners to the show that brought a couple things to my attention, and I wanted to share with them what I knew, and then I realized, I should just share this with everyone because this is important for everyone to know. So the first thing is, if you are running an experiment on Google, as I have many experiments running for my clients all the time, you may have started an experiment 4 years ago and never ended that experiment. Well, unfortunately, that's coming to an end, because if you have an experiment that's been created in the past that did not have an end date, you set an indefinite end date, right? You never assigned an end date. Starting June 1st, which is at the time you're listening to this podcast, in the past, so this has already happened. If you have a experiment that has been running for years, like me, I started an experiment back in 2020, never ended it. It's actually been running since 2020 for very specific reasons. I have this, And it's important that it never stop running because it's an important part of what I want to do for this client. So because of that, you must realize Google has now taken and changed something in your account without you knowing it. Other than this little email, you would never know it. Your unending experiment is now set to end August 23rd, 2024. So if that's fine and you want to stop it on that specific day, great. You don't need to do anything. If that's concerning to you and you don't want it to end, like me, you need to go in and set a reminder for yourself, some kind of schedule. Remember, before the 23rd of August, 2024, you need to go in and change that end date another month forward. So you can only push experiments out, I think, 45 or 50 days or something. So every 30, 35, 40 days, you need to go in to your experiment and push that experiment date further so that it's essentially a never-ending experiment and the end date continues to be pushed further into the future. This is, as I've talked about on this podcast before, I've been very clear. I understand Google changes things and adjusts things, but one part where I do not appreciate is making changes to my account without my permission, and it's something that happens a lot. It's my money or my client's money that I'm managing, and I don't want those changes made. So this is another step over the line. Oh, that experiment that you're just running, we're going to put an end date on it. Well, I'll tell you what, that's not really what I wanted, but there is a loophole that you can just keep pushing that end date forward. So hopefully that's useful to you. Another big change that's happened this week, or last week as of the date of this podcast publishing, there's a new user interface. Now, you may say, well, yeah, there's been a new user interface for a while, like a year, Chris. Well, yes, but many people can swap between the new and old interface. I, just like I was 4 or 5 years ago, am sticking to my old interface. Or I have been up until yesterday, when yesterday Google forced a partial update on the old interface. And there's a lot of things that are moved around. There's plenty of things I can whine and complain about, but what does that matter? I might as well just scream at a wall because it doesn't make a difference. There's no reason for me to gripe about it, so I'm not. But here's what you need to know about this new interface. I've already received emails about it, and it's important that you know Google has moved the search terms button. So there's a search terms menu button where you can view all your search terms. Okay, there's search keywords, which are the keywords that you pick, that you write, broad, phrase, exact. Then there's search terms, which are actually what people typed into google.com. So that has moved. And some people may think that Google has removed search terms entirely from google.com or from AdWords. And no, that's not the case. That would be absolutely horrendous if they did that. I feel like there'd be a massive uprising. But that's not the case. They've just moved it. So if you're having trouble finding search terms in the new interface, just be aware it may have been moved to the Insights and Reports section. That's over on the left-hand side of the page. So if you click on Insights and Reports, it's a ridiculous menu because it has everything from your devices to your location information to your search terms, all kinds of... It's just all crammed into this one section that's completely different than where it ever used to be. So it's ridiculous. It seems like a really bad placement for this kind of stuff because it's very confusing. Insights and Reports, whatever. But that's where it is. You'll find search terms are now in the insights and reports section. It's, Google changes things. I mean, that's what they do. So that's where it is. Hopefully that is useful to you. Okay, so moving on now with another section. I'm actually kind of reordering things because I'm going to go straight into my title section of the podcast today, and that's going to be my warning about wasting money on search partners, because I looked at an account today from a company that will remain nameless, because I absolutely don't want to shame anyone, because this kind of mistake is something I see a lot, and it's high time that I give specific warning flags for people that might be having this same thing happen to them. Okay? So forget about search partners, google.com. You may not even know what that is. I'm going to explain the warning signs that would indicate you are also suffering from this setting in Google Ads that could be wasting a ton of money. So, if you are running a search campaign and you have a ever decreasing cost per click, that's a yellow flag for you. If you can look at weeks and weeks and months and see that the cost per click continues to go down 25%, 15%, 30%, you're seeing some big jumps. It's dumping off 20 cents, 30 cents, $1 at a time. This is a major warning, because you could have an issue here where you are getting traffic outside of google.com. Okay, I'm going to talk about how to fix it and everything, but first I want to talk about how to spot it. Okay, you could be a victim of this if this is the case. If you're running very specific traffic on Google and are getting cost per clicks that are less than $1. Okay, I'm just going to say there's a lot of instances when this would not necessarily be true. It might be a different number, but I'm just going to say if you're getting search traffic less than $1, be very wary of this potential problem that you're getting into. Next, if you're running traffic and you have a surprisingly low cost per click that seems a lot lower than maybe what you would expect your industry to get, or maybe what you've ever gotten before, suddenly you're paying a CPC that's half as much or 75% less than what you used to pay, and you're just thinking, wow, this is going great. Look how much traffic I have. Giant red warning light here. Warning, warning, warning. CPC does not necessarily go down, at least any kind of significant amount. You guys can email me and tell me about, oh, my quality score got a lot better and now I get 50% less CPCs. Bull crap. No, they don't. Year over year, they either maintain or creep up. There is no way that people are going to be able to quality score their way to a fraction of the CPC for an expensive market, for a market that has some decent competition. Now, granted, if you ended up paying way over what the market price was because you were doing it very poorly, and then you brought it back to a very good, solid campaign, then sure, you can experience a deep cut in your CPC, and it's a lot better, but that's because you started out poorly. Talking about people that went from paying $3 and now you're paying 10 cents. Now you're paying 20 cents, 30 cents, less than $1. Absolute warning flag. One last thing. And this should raise a lot of people's attention here, so listen carefully. If you are getting a lot of spam through your lead form or your phone calls, pay attention. If you're experiencing all of those things, then I'm specifically talking to you, because that's what this one company was dealing with, is extremely low CPCs, massive influx of clicks because the CPCs continued to drop, a very high click-through rate, 15% is what we're looking at. So just to share some numbers, we're talking about 15% click-through rate, 10-cent CPCs, and over a period of months, like 20,000 clicks, and a steady flow of conversions that continues to be junk lead after junk lead after junk lead. Never a qualified lead, never a qualified click, never a signed contract or any kind of validated person. International traffic, spam traffic, all of it. So here it is. You can judge by the title of the podcast, for this week's podcast, what I'm talking about. I'm talking about search partners. If you are experiencing one or all of these, I feel like one of the late night commercials out there. If this has lasted more than 4 hours for you, then you need to seek professional help, because you are likely running some, if not all, of your traffic on the search partners and not Google.com. When you signed up for Google Ads, you probably were expecting to show ads on Google, right? Well, that's not always the case. So there's a setting at the campaign level where you can turn off search partners. So particularly those of you that are dealing with a lot of spam, that is very likely where that spam is coming from, is the search partners. So you may want to turn that off. I would highly recommend you turn it off, at least to see what happens, and so that you can spend your money only on Google.com if that's what your intent is, which is what I would recommend. So I hope that is useful to you. I tell you what, it made me absolutely sick when I saw this happening when I was doing some consulting today with a company, and I saw it and immediately knew what it was. And unfortunately, it ended up being thousands of dollars of wasted spend that had been spent on search partners. So be sure and turn that off if that's happening to you. So now, getting back to our regularly scheduled topics, we're going to jump into the question of the week. Question is coming from Massachusetts, Jim in Massachusetts. If you would like to send a question to me for me to answer on the podcast, do it at paidsearchpodcast@gmail.com. Please use that email address, paidsearchpodcast@gmail.com, and it's most likely that I'll see your question that way. Here is Jim's question. Hi, Chris. Love the show. I've been listening for years, and the information you provide has been invaluable to me as I've grown as a PPC professional. In this past week's episode's Metric of the Week segment, you discussed estimated top-of-page bid and impression share lost due to rank metrics. Okay, that's true. You can listen to episode number 414, Metric of the Week. I talk about what Jim is referring to, so go back there and listen. And what I had described was the fact that top-of-page bid is effectively useless, and that the impression share lost due to rank gives you a better idea if you're overbidding. Continuing on with Jim's message, he says, I was a bit unclear on the reasoning you had behind that. I'd always thought that the goal was to aim for the top of the page as frequently as possible on searches that are most relevant to your business or your campaign goals, and that the impression share loss due to rank should be as low as possible. Can you please clarify why that is not the case? I understand that higher CPCs make it tougher to turn a profit, though if the ads aren't showing on the first page consistently, would that not make it difficult to even get quality traffic. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm genuinely curious as I've been dealing more and more with manual CPC campaigns lately. Thanks for all the continued wisdom you shared on your show. By the way, Opteo is great, and I can't thank you enough for putting it on my radar. Boom, there you go. I told you guys. And just to call this the second ad read, we will say opteo.com/PSP to try out that software. So there we go. All right, Jim, great question. Let me explain something. So, and I did this once before with a hamburger analogy where I talked about why, you can go back and listen to the episode, why broad match keywords are cheaper. I discussed a hamburger analogy where there's a lot of different hamburgers out there, but some are cheaper and some are more expensive. And if you just want a hamburger, you could end up with a really cheap McDonald's burger or a big Angus beef, double cheese, gourmet cooked on a grill kind of thing. Okay, but hamburger doesn't really assign you the type of quality of the burger that you're going to get. So I think the same analogy fits here, because if you want to get traffic on the first page, just getting it on the first page is just you did it or you didn't do it. You either showed up on the first page or you didn't show up. Right? It's either a pass or fail situation. You either showed up on Google.com or you didn't. You either lost impression share or you gained impression share. Really simple. So the search loss due to rank metric is far more important, and to monitor that is far more important, because if you are constantly hitting 1%, 2%, 4%, very, very low numbers, you're paying the price of that high quality burger, but you might be getting a McDonald's burger. Okay? Imagine you walk into an establishment and there's just a slot for your money and you put in $25 expecting to get a gourmet cooked, all beef, just gorgeous, greasy burger. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And out pops a little McDonald's burger. And you don't know, let's say you don't know the difference. You've never eaten one in your life. And you just keep paying that $25 and thinking that you're getting gourmet. But you're really getting fast food, cheap burger. So here's why it's important that you monitor your loss due to rank, is because you might be paying top dollar for crap traffic. Jim, I can't see your campaigns. I can't see your keywords, but I have looked at enough accounts in my 21 years of Google Ads that I can tell you that very few accounts are paying market rate for what the value of their traffic is. Many manager accounts that are manual bid, as you're saying that you're starting to explore more, end up with CPCs that are way too high. You're overbidding for it. Not every opportunity is worth top dollar. That's why. And it's not that some of it isn't. It's just that a lot of it is and a lot of it isn't. And it changes all the time. That's why you need certain ad groups based on risk, based on value. You bid at certain thresholds for this ad group because it's not as valuable. This ad group is less valuable, more valuable. You bid up and down, and each of those have a certain value associated with that ad group, and the bid places the value. So now, back to that same analogy that I had talked about, you walk in, and instead of just a slot to put your $25 in, now you are educated enough to realize, if I put it into this slot, I'm going to get this kind of burger. right? I've tested this slot, and I know this is kind of a crappy burger. It's still a burger. It's still worth something to me, but I'm only going to put $2 in this slot. Every time I figured out I can just, I tried $1 and I got no burger. I tried $1.50, I got no burger. I tried $2, boom, got a burger. Great. I just established my minimum CPC to get this kind of crappy burger. That's all I'm willing to pay. Boom, $2. This other slot over here, I tried $2, no burger. I tried $10, no burger. I tried $25, got something, right? That is quality traffic I'm willing to pay for. The burger that I got out was phenomenal. I as long as I can keep getting this kind of traffic coming in, I keep breaking my analogy, but every time I keep getting this burger coming in, I'm willing to pay that $25. I'm not able to pay for as many as I'd like, but I know every time I put $25 in there, I'm going to get it, and I'm happy with the quality. That is why you are mismanaging your bids if you're doing everything at quality level of delicious, greasy, double cheese, gourmet burger level, and you're paying that price for fast food McDonald's burger, fast food Burger King. I don't have to pick on McDonald's, but I think everybody would agree, and I think it makes its point well. So I hope that makes sense. In no way is traffic created equal. Not all traffic is worth the price of what you would think it should be. Just because you have a certain keyword, that does not mean you are getting that quality of traffic from that keyword. So pay attention to the results of that keyword, the search terms coming from that keyword. Pay the appropriate price for each of those keywords. Pay high price for quality. Pay low price for non-quality, low quality, let's say. Okay, so we're moving on now to the last section, and this is the section that I had alluded to at the beginning of the show. I'm actually going to get into another question from a listener. This one's from Anthony, who sent in a question a while ago, so I appreciate your patience. Hopefully you're going to hear this, Anthony, but I know there are many people out there that listen to the show that are new to PPC, building their career, and I'm very much in my late stage of Google Ads management. There's not many people that I meet that can say they've done this for 2 decades. So I have a hard time giving advice on how to start your business and how to establish, and get lead, get clients and things like that. But I thought this question from Anthony was not necessarily asking that, but it was asking a more fundamental question. So let's go through it. Anthony says, "Hi, Chris. I came across your podcast. It was very informative and well done. And because I was looking for information on Google Shopping and Google Ads in general, I'm thinking about a career change. And I'm considering doing Google certifications for Google Ads. I have no experience with Google Ads. Previously, I was self-employed for almost 30 years. Without any experience, is Google Ads a realistic field to explore?" Okay. Great question, Anthony, because it doesn't ask the very common question that I get all the time. How do I get more clients? I'm sorry. I'm probably not the best to talk about that because a lot of my clients come to me through word of mouth and the podcast, and it's a bad answer, a bad area for me to answer. But what I can answer is what the field looks like. Is PPC a realistic career now? Is it a realistic field, especially for someone who has no experience? So let's answer that. So to get straight to the answer, I'm not going to make you listen to 10 minutes of yada, yada, yada. I'll tell you yes. Anthony, the answer is yes. I think PPC, even with no experience, is still a realistic career, field, skill, whatever you want to call it, that you can embark on, even though there's a ton of people that do it. big agencies down to small little freelancers in their, working out of their bedroom, So it's absolutely something you can do. And let me explain why, because I think this will help you put perspective on how you can help people, okay? So think about it this way. First of all, point number one, pay-per-click, Google Ads, let's just call it Google Ads. I know there's other PPC stuff out there, but I only do Google Ads. Google Ads is not that difficult, all right? If it was so complex that there was just so many things to consider, I wouldn't be able to explain it on a podcast. I wouldn't be able to do consulting and train someone in 1 hour on essentially how to run a Google Ads campaign. The basics of Google Ads are actually quite simple. So I can tell you absolutely it's not that difficult. I think you can definitely handle, the basic elements of Google Ads and, making sure that you get the right kind of traffic for your clients and things like that. I mean, it really comes down to some very simple things. Point number two is this. There is a lot of value in having someone manage their account for them. Okay? I can't tell you how much damage is done every day from neglected accounts that are just wasting money because no one with any kind of idea about Google Ads is checking them. Nobody who at least knows how to check some of the foundational important things. Just the simple idea of, are you paying for good quality traffic? Are you wasting money or not wasting money, right? That's the most basic thing. And if you can answer that for your clients, that even at a small rate, small fee, applies to every account out there. That's essentially all I do for clients, is just make sure they're not wasting money. And then it goes up from there. The complexity of that question goes up and up. So just providing that is a massive value. Okay? Next point. There are many different aspects to Google Ads. And you say, well, I have, this, I don't know how to do all. There's so many things. There's search, there's display, there's video, there's shopping. I don't know how to do all that. Well, I can tell you, you don't have to do all of that. Most people on Google Ads are going to do search, or they're going to do shopping, or maybe both. Not nearly as much display and not nearly as much video. The vast majority is search and shopping. I think search is by far first. Search campaigns and shopping campaigns. So don't feel like you need to be an expert of it all. If you can answer a basic question about are you wasting money and how to apply that and how to qualify where the money's going and if it's worth it, then you are covering more than what that business owner is doing for themselves. And if you can specialize in a certain area that you think is valuable for them, search, display, video, shopping, whatever it is, that's even better. So you don't have to try and cover everything. You talked about getting certifications. You don't have to get all 5 certifications. You can just get search. And more important than that, you don't have to get a certification. Here's the next point. Google Ads is the Wild West of marketing. There's a lot of areas where you're going to run into regulation. TV ads, and there's a barrier between you and buying directly from the source. Google Ads, you can go in and buy directly from Google Ads. There's no middleman here. There's no regulations. There's no laws or anything like that are keeping you. So you don't have to have certification to do this. For many years, I actually wasn't even a Google partner. I didn't see the value in it and still don't really see a whole lot of value in it. But there's no reason why you have to be. It's merely just kind of a flashy badge to show people. But in the end, it doesn't mean anything. So you don't even have to be certified. So with all of that said, here's the best news. The most difficult part of doing pay-per-click Google Ads management is the same that's difficult for everything else out there. Just getting the clients, right? Getting the clients on Google Ads is the same difficulty that a lawn care company would have. It's the same difficulty that a lawyer has, same difficulty that a plumber has. Every career has this same problem. So, I'm not going to have any better advice because everybody does it differently. And every industry out there has a problem getting more clients. That's the one thing they want. So the good news is that's the most difficult part, just getting clients. The management part, I don't think is as difficult. And once you know how to do it, it's a skill. It's a skill that's relevant to millions of businesses. What business out there can't benefit from being on the world's largest search engine? Well, not very many. There's very few that don't need it. There absolutely are some out there that don't need it, but there are millions that do and can get some kind of benefit from it. Many businesses absolutely rely on it exclusively for their client in intake. So it's a skill that's very relevant to millions of businesses. And last, I will say this. Managing Google Ads campaigns, managing PPC campaigns is harder than cleaning tables at a restaurant, right? You have to make a whole lot more critical decisions, and you have to have those tough calls with clients sometimes. If something isn't going well, you have to figure out what's wrong. I mean, could be a million things, and that's more complicated than cleaning tables at the restaurant, right? But there can be a major reward, and you can make it into a career doing PPC. And the good news is it's easier and a lot cheaper than something that's regulated by federal or state laws, right? You as I said before, you don't need a degree. You don't need a certification. You can just do it. You could try and start a career in many other things, but you're going to run into limitations. You have to be a journeyman and then work your way up, or you have to take certification tests from the state, from the federal government. I mean, it could be all kinds of things, stepping stones. You have to go to college first and get a degree in order to be hired by someone who will do it, because it first requires a bachelor's or an associate's or something like that. There's no barrier here. So it is easier than something that is going to be have a massive barrier to entry, but it is harder than doing something like cleaning tables at a restaurant. So I hope that gives you some perspective. I think it's great. I think it's not made for everyone. I think there's plenty of people that it's not a good fit for. But if you are a very analytical person and find yourself enjoying things that are very analytical, and you're comfortable with computers and things like that, then I think it would be a great opportunity for many, many people. So I hope that is an encouragement to many of you out there that are considering PPC. If you'd like someone to coach you on that basic aspect of Google Ads, I do a 1-hour session where I can show you how to do that. That's my Google Ads consulting. I also do management of accounts as well. But otherwise, I'm just the Paid Search Podcast guy, and I appreciate you being here and subscribing. I will catch you next week.